In this particular lecture, let's work on creating a form to save the data for this model, which means that whenever we have to save the data for a model via a form, we need to create a model form. So whenever you have to create a form for Django, you always go inside the app, which is in this case my app, and create a new file called as forms.py. And once you have this file created, let's go ahead and let's create a form for the expense model. So here I would call this form as expense form, and now this is not just a simple class, but it's actually a model form. So here I would say model form. Now we also need to import model form as well from django.forms. So I would say from django.forms I want to import the model form. So once this is imported, now we could go ahead and start adding some content to this form. So in this form, first of all, we need to mention that we are using the expense model. So we have to import the expense model as well from the current directory. So from .models, I want to import the expense model. And now let's specify that model up over here in a meta class. So class meta. I want to say that the model which this is using is going to be expense. And now once we have specified the model, we also need to specify the fields which we want to accept from the user. So if you take a look at the model here, the model has the fields like name, amount, category, and date. Out of these fields, we only want to accept the name, amount, and category, and we are not concerned with the date here. So right up inside the forms.py, I could specify the fields which I want by saying fields equals, and then I want the name, I want the amount, and then I want the category. Once this is added, we are pretty much good to go. So now this form is created. Now we simply have to go ahead and somehow render this particular form on this particular index page which we have. And the way in which we do that is we take this form and pass it to the view, and from the view we pass that particular form to the template which we have. So let's get the form in here first. So in order to get that form, I would say from .forms I want to import the expense form. And once we have the expense form, you have to create an instance of that particular expense form, because remember that if you go to forms.py, this expense form is nothing but a class. So that means you kind of have to go ahead and create an instance or an object out of it. So in here, I would say expense form equals expense form. Now, once you have created that instance, you now have to pass that instance up over here as context. So here, to add context, I would say expense underscore form as expense form. Once this thing is done, we are pretty much good to go. So now let's go to the file which is index.html, and let's try rendering this form. So we all know that whenever we have to render a specific form, we first add the form tag, and then we add a CSRF token as well. So CSRF underscore token. And this time let's simply pass in the context here and render the form as P. So here the name of the form which we are passing here is expense underscore form, and I would say dot as underscore P. So let's see what's going to be rendered on the index page now. So let's go back to the browser, hit refresh, and as you can see, now we have the expense form rendered up over here, and we are good to go. Now the problem with this form is that although this form is rendered, there's no proper styling to this form even after using Tailwind. And that's because we have rendered this entire form as P, and in order to style this particular form up, we actually need to go ahead and render each and every element which we have inside of the form, and then add Tailwind styling to it. So in the next lecture, even before making this form functional, let's go ahead and let's style up this form in the way which we want. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.